The colony ship had crashed 3 solar cycles ago, and Emma was the only human left alive on the desert planet the locals called Keth. The others had succumbed to the harsh atmosphere, the relentless sun, or the predators that hunted in the canyon depths. She survived because she learned to adapt, to drink moisture from the thick-skinned plants, to hide in the caves when the twin suns reached their peak. The natives of Keth were a reptilian species called the Vaoth. They had scales like polished obsidian, eyes that reflected light like mirrors, and bodies built for the scorching climate. They had watched Emma from a distance for weeks before one of them approached. His name was Ren, and he was a scout for his clan, tasked with determining whether the strange pink creature posed a threat to their territory. Ren had never seen anything like Emma. She had no scales, no protective plating, no natural defenses against the environment that should have killed her within days. Her skin was soft and vulnerable, yet somehow she endured. She covered herself with fabric torn from the wrecked ship, wrapped her head against the sun, and moved with a careful intelligence that intrigued him. Their first real interaction came when Ren fell. He had been tracking a sandworm through the rocky outcrops when the stone beneath his feet gave way. The fall was not far, perhaps 3 body lengths, but he landed badly on a jutting rock formation. The impact tore open his side, and blue blood began to seep through his scales. The wound was deep, running from his lower rib cage to his hip, and he knew immediately that without treatment, the bleeding would not stop in time. Emma heard his distress call, a low whistle that carried across the desert. She found him at the bottom of the ravine, clutching his side, his blood darkening the sand beneath him. For a moment, she hesitated. The Vaoth had not been hostile, but neither had they been welcoming. She had survived by avoiding contact, by staying invisible. But she could not watch another being die, not after losing everyone else. She scrambled down the rocks, her hands scraping against the rough stone. When she reached him, Ren's eyes widened in surprise and suspicion. He hissed a warning, his hand moving toward the blade at his belt, but the movement caused fresh blood to pour from the wound. He collapsed back against the rock, too weak to resist. Emma knelt beside him and examined the injury. It needed to be closed, and quickly. She had no medical supplies, no proper tools. The ship's emergency kit had been lost in a sandstorm weeks ago. She looked around desperately for something, anything that could help. Her eyes fell on a cluster of barrel plants growing from a crack in the canyon wall. Their thick spines jutted out like needles. She had learned to harvest their moisture carefully, avoiding the thorns that could pierce straight through her palm. Now she saw them differently. She pulled one of the longest thorns free, testing its strength. It was rigid and sharp, perfect for piercing. But she had nothing to use as thread, no fiber strong enough to hold the wound closed. She checked her clothing, but the fabric had been worn thin and would tear too easily. Ren watched her through half-closed eyes, his breathing shallow. He did not understand what the human was trying to do, but he recognized the determination in her movements. Emma sat back on her heels, thinking. Then, slowly, she reached up and touched her hair. It had grown long during the months on Keth, well past her shoulders, thick and dark. She had kept it tied back to keep it out of her face, but now she looked at it with new purpose. She pulled her hair forward and used the small cutting tool she carried to saw through a thick section near the base of her skull. The strands came away in her hand, coarse and strong. She separated out the longest pieces, then began to braid them together, creating a cord that was flexible but sturdy. Ren made a sound of confusion, a clicking in his throat that might have been a question. Emma did not speak his language, but she met his eyes and held up the hair thread and the thorn. She mimed the action of sewing, hoping he would understand. His eyes widened again, but this time not with suspicion, with something that might have been awe. Emma did not hesitate. She positioned the thorn and began to work, piercing Ren's tough skin and pulling the makeshift thread through. The Vaoth had different anatomy than humans, but the principle was the same. She worked carefully, each stitch precise, pulling the edges of the wound together. Ren's blood coated her hands, warm and strangely luminescent in the fading light. He did not cry out, though she knew it must have caused him pain. He watched her work with those mirror-bright eyes, his breathing gradually steadying as the wound closed. When she finished, Emma tied off the last stitch and sat back, exhausted. Her hands trembled from the concentration and the adrenaline. Ren looked down at his side, at the neat line of stitches holding him together, at the dark strands of human hair woven through his flesh. He reached up and touched her head, his scaled fingers surprisingly gentle against the uneven patch where she had cut her hair away. He made a sound, low and resonant, that might have been gratitude. Over the following days, something changed in Ren. Emma stayed close, checking the wound, making sure it did not become infected. The Vaoth's biology proved remarkably resilient, and the injury began to heal faster than she had expected. But as it healed, something unexpected began to happen. Fine strands began to emerge from Ren's scales along the line of the wound. At first, Emma thought it was some kind of infection, but Ren did not seem concerned. The strands grew longer, and she realized with shock that they looked like hair. Like her hair. The growth spread slowly, creeping across Ren's torso, up his neck, down his arms. Within a week, he was partially covered in a pelt of dark hair that matched the color of Emma's own. The other Vaoth, who came to check on their scout, recoiled in shock and confusion. Nothing like this had ever happened before. The clan elders were summoned. They examined Ren, prodding at the hair, testing its texture. They questioned Emma through gestures and broken attempts at communication. She tried to explain what she had done, how she had used her own hair to save him, but she did not know if they understood. The eldest of the Vaoth, a female named Keth, studied Emma for a long time. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out and touched the human's shortened hair, then touched the hair growing on Ren's body. She made a series of clicks and whistles, and the other elders responded in kind. Finally, Keth turned to Emma and bowed her head, a gesture that Emma recognized as respect. The Vaoth came to understand that the human had shared part of herself to save one of their own, and in doing so, had created something new. Ren became a bridge between their species, neither fully Vaoth nor human, but carrying elements of both. The hair did not hinder him. If anything, it seemed to protect him from the sun in ways his scales alone had not. Emma was welcomed into the clan. They gave her shelter in their underground dwellings, taught her their language, showed her how to hunt and gather in ways she had not discovered on her own. She, in turn, taught them about human ingenuity, about problem-solving and adaptation. Ren became her constant companion. He was fascinated by the change in himself, often running his clawed fingers through the hair that now covered much of his body. He told Emma, once he learned enough of her language, that he could feel her presence in it, that it was like carrying a piece of her with him always. Years passed. Emma never left Keth, though she sometimes wondered if rescue would ever come. She built a life among the Vaoth, becoming their teacher, their healer, their friend. Ren remained by her side, the living proof that two species could share more than just a planet. When other humans finally arrived, a small exploration team searching for the lost colony ship, they found Emma living among the scaled people, speaking their language fluently, teaching their young. They found Ren, the Vaoth covered in human hair, standing beside her like a guardian. The explorers were shocked, confused, unable to process what they were seeing. Emma explained the story simply, showing them the scar on Ren's side, the place where it had all begun. She told them about sacrifice, about connection, about the ways beings could change each other when they chose to save rather than abandon. The explorers asked if she wanted to leave, to return to human civilization. Emma looked at Ren, at the clan that had become her family, at the desert world that had tested her and found her worthy. She chose to stay. And in the years that followed, more humans came to Keth, drawn by the story of the woman who gave her hair to save an alien life. Some stayed, some left, but all of them carried the tale with them. The story of how humanity proved that compassion required no common language, that sacrifice could bridge any divide, and that sometimes the most human thing one could do was to give a piece of oneself to save another, no matter how different they might be.